Hello, Bondi podcast listeners. The guest on this episode is Daniel Calderwood. Now, Danny's one of my best friends here in Bondi, and about a month ago, we both went on a trip to India. We went on a meditation retreat, and it was an absolutely incredible experience. It was fucking mental, but it was an absolutely incredible experience, and we decided to do a podcast just talking about the trip overall. Now, this is a little different to our usual episodes, but I hope you enjoy it just as much. This episode is sponsored by Remote and Chief Nutrition, but I'll tell you a bit more about the both of them later. We've got some really good sponsor deals for our listeners. And as always, remember to give us a follow on Instagram at the Bondi Podcast to stay up to date with all of our guests and episodes, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and give us a follow on Spotify. Cheers! Daniel, welcome to the Bondi Podcast, mate.
Thank you.
Mate, you've been begging to come on for about a year now. We finally got you on. How does it feel?
Episode 40.
Episode 40. 41.
Got there in the end.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty weird.
Pretty weird to be here.
Yeah. Walked in, saw the lights, shit the bed. But here we are. We've got a story to tell. So
Did you not say when we were in India that you had you dreamt that we were doing this, or?
I don't know. A lot of stuff happened in India. I think that's probably at the bottom of the weird stuff list. I can't remember. I don't think so. Maybe.
I thought you said to me like when we were in India you had
sorry.
had a meditation. You had a
Sorry,
dream.
I had an idea of us doing it.
Aye.
I didn't imagine us
Okay.
doing it. But here we are.
We're here now, mate.
We're here now.
So we're about a month on, like without giving too much away, because we're gonna get into it throughout the course of the episode. But like, how do you looking back? Like, how do you reflect on the trip overall?
Definitely glad I went and did it.
Yeah.
Proud of myself for sticking it out. I mean, I didn't have much of a choice. Like at the point when I was like, I can't do this, I was a 7-hour drive and a 13-hour flight from Sydney. But yeah, glad I went and did it. Proud that I stuck it out. I never really considered leaving, but in the first night, second day, it was very difficult. But I'm not sure I'll be rushing back. Like, yeah, I think that's probably the summary that I've got of it. I think what we're trying to do, I think you could probably achieve like in the retreats up in Byron or down in Gerringong or whatever. I don't think we need to go all that way and have such a massive culture shock and like all the travel. But saying that, I'm glad that obviously like I hadn't been to a place like that in a long time. Like I think the last time I was in a third world country, let's call it that, something comparative in terms of like poverty, it's like 20 years ago in northern Mexico. So that and the spirituality, like a very unique experience, and that's without doing 8 hours of meditation a day. So glad I went, proud I stuck it out. I'm not sure I'll be rushing back to that exact part of the world. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, like I kind of feel the same. So what I've been sort of telling people was amazing experience, really glad I did it. It was amazing to go and just experience that culture shock of India, because it's like very intense.
Yeah.
And what I've been saying to people is we were doing a really intense thing, i.e. the meditation,
Correct.
in a very intense place.
Yes, very.
But the overall experience, like once in a lifetime sort of thing.
Totally.
But not rushing back to go and do it.
I think that's the, when people have asked me, that's the sort of 3 elements that I've attached to describing it.
Yeah.
But
I would say, like, to anyone that's not gone and done it, go and fucking do it.
100%. Yeah, like,
go and do it.
If you're practicing meditation and you've got a few things going on that you're trying to sort out, in that environment, in that location, under those circumstances, there is nowhere to hide. We'll get into, what the rules were, like obviously no phones and no, coffee and whatnot. There's nothing, no stimulants for your body. So it's just you versus you with others around you and with support.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely an experience. And if you're into that kind of stuff that we're doing, then I would thoroughly recommend it.
So I'm going to set the scene a little bit here, provide a little bit of background. So it was a rounding retreat. It wasn't a meditation retreat, but like the type of meditation that Danny and I do is called Vedic meditation, and in its really simplest form, it's a form of stress release. And essentially, what rounding does, my understanding in really simplistic terms, it enhances the stress release that you get from one single meditation. So a round in itself, it lasts about 1 hour, and it's a combination of very basic yoga, very basic breath work, a 20-minute meditation, which is the normal meditation that you and I would do on a daily basis,
Twice a day.
followed by a 10-minute shavasana. So that thing you do when you lie on the ground at the end of a yoga class. That sequence takes about 1 hour, but it just really enhances the stress release you get from a meditation. So that's the sort of retreat we went on. I'm not sure either of us were expecting what we actually got, but we can definitely delve in. But before we actually get into the rounding itself, that's sort of the science behind it. You booked on like relatively last minute. I'd been booked on for a couple of months. You booked on last minute. Like, what were you expecting going in?
Certainly not what we got, for good and for bad. I'm not sure. The itinerary was very light on information. There was more around what vaccinations you need and what visa you need to get, and if there's, I don't know, 500 words on everything about it, about 5 of them were about actually what you were going to do. And I think, with the benefit of hindsight, I think that was a good thing, because I think if they'd spelled out in intricate detail how often you would be meditating, it might be particularly difficult. You're not, all these rules and all the stuff, then, you might have thought twice about going, because it's definitely challenging. Yeah, I don't know. I booked on late because I had another engagement that eventually decided this was more important. With a couple of weeks to go, I got a gut feeling that I should be going.
Oh yeah, talk about that.
Um,
Because I'd already booked on. You knew I was going to Rishikesh.
I decided I suggested it to you
Months and months ago.
and then you decided you were going, and then I wasn't quite sure, and then I'd actually booked yet another tattoo, believe it or not, and I couldn't get my money back and I couldn't reschedule it, so I decided I wasn't going. I was like, it's not meant to be, maybe next year. And then I was watching, I've got YouTube on my TV in my apartment, and I was just flicking through and ended up watching a Jetty podcast, and I can't remember what one it was, maybe Benny Benassi and somebody else, anyway, and he's talked about Rishikesh. He said it's his favourite place in the world. It's the best place to go and meditate. Talked about this cave that people have been meditating in for hundreds of years, the most spiritual place in the world.
Thousands of years.
Thousands of years. And at that point, I just was like, nah, I need to go. It felt like the right thing to do. And then I spoke to Matt, who runs the retreat, and we worked it out, and yeah, ended up going. But I booked on, I think it was 3 weeks to go, but I had 2 weeks booked off over the Easter break for holiday anyway, and I was looking for some plans, and I didn't think I'd end up where I did, but I did. Yeah.
Just a quick word from me, guys, and please don't skip over this. Do you want a free coffee from me? We're making some really good progress on Spotify and YouTube. I've set myself a goal of having 1,000 followers on Spotify and 1,000 subscribers on YouTube by the end of 2025. So here's what I need you to do. I need you to pause this episode right now, jump into your Spotify app, click that follow button, then jump into your YouTube app, click that subscribe button. It really, really helps with the show, and it would mean an awful lot to me. And as a thank you to everyone that does that, here's what I'm proposing. If you see me out and about in person, and you can show me on your phone that you are subscribed to the podcast on YouTube and following it on Spotify, I'll buy you a coffee. Can't say fairer than that. But here's the thing, you've got to be subscribed on YouTube and following it on Spotify to qualify for that free coffee. How does that sound? Cheers. So yeah, again, Matt Matt's the founder and the head teacher at the Bondi Meditation Center, and um, it was essentially the retreat itself was away with the Bondi Meditation Center. They do a trip to India every year, so just provide a little bit of context there as well. Right, day one, you and me, we flew together. We flew into Delhi. We arrived
Yep.
like very, very early in the morning, probably like 4 or 5 a.m. I think we
Yeah.
touched down, and then we had to drive north to Rishikesh,
Yeah.
which ended up being a fucking 7 hour drive.
7 hours. I think that's the longest I've ever driven. Apart from driving from Melbourne to Sydney when I moved here, that is the longest. I said we weren't driving, right? We were just sitting
Yeah, we got picked
talking.
up.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
still, it was a
yeah.
long journey. Yeah.
After a 13-hour flight, it was.
After a 13-hour flight on Air India, which
But that journey, that drive from Delhi to Rishikesh in itself, it kind of sort of is a bit of a teaser as to what we were in for, because it was a bit fucking mental.
yes, yeah, it was. You got a taste of what it's like, what the
Yeah.
place is like, right? Like how remote it is, how spiritual it is, how unusual and unique it is. And if you spent so much time living in, Sydney or Melbourne or Glasgow or London or whatever, and you haven't been somewhere like that on a trip for a long time, you realise very quickly that you're in somewhere very different. And I think we were laughing about it, right?
Yeah.
Like cows in the road and like what looked like teenagers wearing no health and safety equipment, building motorways, pouring concrete.
And the wee
Like,
kids, yeah,
it was
they were
insane.
building like a motorway as we were driving past it, and we
Absolutely
looked
nuts.
in, and there was a little like 16-year-old who was barefoot pouring cement.
I mean, I'm like sort of laughing about it. Like, I'm not sure that's the right thing to do, but it was, yeah. Very quickly, you got a feeling that you were somewhere that you weren't used to. It wasn't your normal environment, and I don't think that really. It was a bit of a benchmark for what we were in for, but
Yeah.
it gave you a taste of it. I mean, when we stopped to get food
The wee restaurant by
at
the
the
side of the road.
restaurant and we tried to read the menu, it was like, it was a completely different language, right? We didn't speak, and I'm not even sure either of us tried to like translate it or Google it, or maybe we did, I don't know. But yeah, it was like, what can we eat here that's not going to give us real problems
Yeah.
digestive wise?
Yeah.
So I think we both went for rice and bread, which is pretty safe, which turned out to be very safe because we didn't actually have any.
Yeah.
We weren't sick at all.
But you went to the toilet in that restaurant.
I went to the toilet in that restaurant and there was a guy, my recollection was there was a guy that looked like he'd just come out of the shower. He had like a towel wrapped around his waist. He was like, 5'2" or whatever. Like it was an unusual setup. And we're obviously the only Western like white people in the whole place, right? Like, yeah, the food stopped. And then I think we stopped quite quickly after that because I saw Starbucks.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, there's something in there that I need to give me some sort of comfort. I think I got a coffee and a brownie or something. I don't know. But yeah, the journey was long and interesting.
Yeah, it was mental. And then when we were initially staying in an ashram that was like further north than Rishikesh, and we had to get through Rishikesh to get to the ashram. But that to get through Rishikesh itself took about 2 or 3 hours.
We've obviously both been to Bali, Thailand. You know what it's like with the traffic.
Aye.
And this was similar to that. I think of the 7 hours that we drove, I would say at least 3 of them were just sitting in
Traffic in
nose to nose
Rishikesh.
traffic. But if there's just random cows just roaming
Everywhere.
the busiest streets, like people are swerving in taxis and mopeds to get out the way of like 4 cows like grouped together in the middle of the road, then you're not going anywhere quick.
That was like one of the things that did shock me. Like I knew going to India, cows are sacred. Something people say, oh, there's cows on the road and stuff like that. I didn't anticipate
No.
that many cows on the fucking road.
Nah.
All the time.
All the time. Yeah, all the time. Yeah, I'm not sure there's much road safety, driver's licenses, insurance going on there. Yeah.
No, mental.
I can't remember trying to think if there's anything else on that trip, like that part of the journey. I'm not sure there was. It was worth probably talking about.
No.
But it was a long journey
Yeah.
and it was mad.
Yeah.
It wasn't quite as mad as what we ended up doing, but it gave you a taste for it.
And then after 7 hours in that taxi, we get dumped at the side of a road beside a big river with a bridge over the river, and we just looked at each other and we're like, where the fuck are we? Where the fuck are we going?
What is happening here?
So the first half of the trip we were staying in an ashram, and for those that don't know, like an ashram is, well, I looked up the definition earlier. Apparently it's like a monastery where people go to practice spiritual practices like yoga or meditation. So by their very nature, they're quite basic as well. So our ashram, what we're told, was actually like a very nice ashram, and it was across the river Ganges, the river Ganga, in this sort of jungle, foresty jungle type setup, but really, really secluded. Like, how would you describe the ashram?
Kind of like like a sort of quaint, like monastery accommodation sort of built on the side of a river that was very secluded because, you know, you've got to cross a large bridge to get there and then you're climbing up, right? Like
Yeah.
We had a couple of guys, I don't know if they worked at the ashram, that came and like jimmied our bags up and carried them for us.
One of the wee guys strapped my suitcase to the back of his scooter and then zoomed past us.
Because my guy carried his on the top of his head. Like, no bother, like just here he goes. I'm trying to think of a comparison, but we don't have a comparison, right?
No.
Like, and I haven't stayed in any other ashrams, but I think it was a high-end, nice one. And now that I haven't really because I've come back, it's been 3 weeks since I've come back. I've come back to an absolute fucking shit show at work, and it's just been non-stop. I think I'm thinking about it now more than I have since I came back, which is nice because I'm smiling. Like, it's bringing a smile to my face because it was so mad.
But it was a beautiful setting.
Yeah.
Because it was so secluded. You're in the foothills of the Himalayas. Other than our ashram, there's nothing else around you other than maybe a few farms, like here and there.
Well, they had their own. I think they've got like a temple, like up the back, and then they've got their own farm where they grow their own food that feeds everyone that works in and around that spot. And yeah, I remember like the second last day before we left, I went upstairs in the morning and sat and had like a cup of. Thinking about the other day, what was I drinking? Lemongrass tea with a shot of honey in it. I was sitting before we did our first round of that morning, and I got talking to a guy, and it turned out that he was the owner. And I was like, "Oh, right." So I started asking him questions, and he said that it took him, like, very nonchalant response was just like, 28 years to build it. So you've been building it with his hands for 28 years.
Building the ashram?
Building the whole thing from the ground up, right? And he was just like, 20. It's just like his life's work, as if it was like completely normal.
How are you lugging up like construction stuff to build it? They're like, how?
I don't think they're doing anything else, so they've got time on their hands, and I don't think maybe they don't know any different.
But logistically, it would be a nightmare.
Yeah, I mean,
you work in construction, that would be a fucking nightmare to try and build that.
Yeah, like any materials that you need. You'd have to get from the road, which is across the massive river, down a huge hill, then up another hill. Yeah, it might just be lots of manual labour over a very long period of time. But in terms of like where we're like the quality of like the accommodation for where we were, I was quite impressed with it. Like, you had like a shower with hot water and you had like a fan, and that may not seem like a luxury, but I think if you'd been on the journey and travelled the distance and seen the surroundings, once you got there, that it does seem like a luxury. And it was hot, right? Like, it was like 30 degrees, so you need all that stuff. But yeah, like a very sort of quaint village built into the side of like a large hill that
Overlooked.
overlooks a river,
Yeah.
and very secluded,
Yeah.
very peaceful, and actually very like beautiful. Like the way that the way they'd like designed it. Like if you look back at pictures of it, obviously it's not for the context now, but it was actually, it would have taken a long time. There's a lot of effort I think went into building it. Even if I just remember walking a lot, and there was so many like big like pebbles that were like faceted into the ground, so you weren't walking on like grass or whatever like that. No wonder it took them 28 years.
Yeah. Yeah. And then day one, everyone arrived on that first day, and then we went to the yoga hall, which is where we did all of our rounding when we were at the ashram. We did our first round that evening. So you and me, we'd been meditating for a long time, but we've never done any sort of rounding before. So
No.
Matt, the teacher, sort of taught us that rounding sequence. Yeah, and we did our first round that night, but you struggled a bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, um,
Like you found that tough, didn't you?
I found it tough, but the only reason I found it tough is because I don't do yoga because of some physical challenges.
Yeah.
Obviously, having my hips reshaped in 2017 has made that kind of stuff.
Difficult.
Well, yes,
Uncomfortable.
yes, but I think we've discussed a few times.
Hmm.
I think I think because it's been a long time and it seems unresolved, I think in my mind it seems a lot harder than it is.
Hmm.
But yeah, physically on the first night, I just did everything that was asked and then felt a bit sore and then started to worry because I was thinking we've got fucking 8 hours of this
We
a
didn't know it.
day.
We didn't know we had 8 hours
Well,
at that
I
stage.
think we knew there was a lot. I think I knew there was a lot of it to come,
Hmm.
and I was like starting to panic a wee bit because I was like, how am I how am I going to do this? But then I went and spoke to Matt, had a check in with him, and was like, look, this is my concern, and he was like, just make adjustments to whatever the poses that you
Hmm.
need to, and we were we were laughing because you were like the first thing that we were asked to do, just lie flat on the floor. And within 5 minutes, I was like, I'm fucked. I can't do this.
Yeah, it was essentially lie on the floor and do absolutely nothing, or lie on your
Yeah.
yoga mat and do absolutely nothing. And you were like, "I'm fucked." I
Yeah,
was
I think
like,
there's
I was
that.
like,
I
you're
think
not
it's
gonna get
that.
through this.
Nah, I think it's that the way you lie on your back and you've got a natural curvature in the back of the
Aye.
bottom of your spine. And I was trying to like adjust it and I was like moving about and I was doing like weird stuff. And yeah, it was a bit uncomfortable. But um,
I've never
I
seen
made
it.
the adjustments the next day, right? I
I've ne-
was like put a pillow under my back or changed a few bits and immediately that kind of went away. But then once I'd got over that hurdle, it was then, right, you've now got 8 hours of rounding to do, which I'm sure we'll get into. But yeah, the first night was the first round was a challenge.
Yeah, and then after we did that first round, we sort of got the rules
Mm,
for the week as well. Sort of
yeah.
Matt sort of set out, right, these are sort of the rules for the week. We want to completely de-stimulate the body. So it was essentially no phones, no caffeine. It'll be a vegetarian diet
Mm,
while we're at the ashram. No meat, which you and I are two big meat eaters, so that was a
mm,
bit of a shock. And then most mornings, um, it was like silence until lunchtime. So
yeah.
I was sort of expecting something like that. I don't know if you were expecting something like
I'm
that.
not sure that I had really thought about that stuff. As you said, I signed on pretty late. The itinerary was very light on information. My brain is busy as it is constantly anyway. So I'm not sure I'd given that any consideration. Like, but I think it's in the world that we live in, like you're constantly stimulated with your phone and all the different bits. To get strip all that away is only going to enhance the experience of what they're trying to achieve. So again, with hindsight, it's a good thing.
Mm.
And even just like we're obviously what was there 13 of us on the trip, 12 of us, just in the breaks that you had when you spoke to each other at lunch and dinner or breakfast or whatever. If you've not got your phone, you're actually sitting like talking to people.
Getting to know
And I
people.
don't think you're. I mean, everyone's on their phone a lot, right? And I don't think you probably use yours as much as I do. And not having it is extremely healthy. Like that's one of the reasons why I probably went, was to try and get that sort of reset, if you like. So yeah, the rules were intense. No, I don't think you said there's no sugar.
Oh yeah, there was no sugar. Yeah, that's right.
No sugar.
Or
There
no
was obviously,
artificial
yeah,
sugar. Yeah.
no exercise. Like, so no, obviously no gyms. I mean, they didn't have a fucking gym, right? But like no running, no nothing. So yeah, the rules. I understand why they had them, not the rules, but and they weren't rules, right? It wasn't like you can't
Guidance.
use your phone,
Yeah.
right? But it was like it's advised not to, and you're an adult, you're not a child, so like you can't just be like, oh, I wanted. So yeah, the rules added to it, but they were good.
And then day two. So we woke up day two. We were not speaking to each other.
No.
Yeah, it was completely silent. And we went to I think we went up for like a really light breakfast that morning, but then we went to that yoga hall where we were going to do some rounding. We had no idea how much rounding we were going to be doing that day. So we did 4 rounds in the morning, lunch.
Back to back.
Yeah, back to back, no break. Well, there was a toilet break about halfway through, but
Yeah.
just 4 hours straight of rounding. Straight up for lunch.
Yeah.
Straight back down to the yoga hall. Another 4 hours of rounding.
Yeah.
Dinner. And everyone was like fucked. So it was like an early night. But like that 8 hours of rounding was one of the most intense things I've done in my life.
It was beyond belief. Like when I tell people just in day to day that I do 20 minutes of meditation twice a day, they're like, how do you do that? I can't believe you do that. Like, it's a shock. Now, I appreciate of the 8 hours, it's not all meditation, but let's be honest, it is. It's all part of the practice, right? So to think about doing 8 hours in one day, yeah, I think in the start it was like, I think when we eventually got the news that we were going to be doing less, people felt relieved because it's really difficult, right?
Well, it's stress release and it's enhanced stress release. So the way the program on the retreat was sort of structured was start of the week, lots of rounding, lots of stress release, and then we sort of gradually tapered off. But those first 2 days we were doing 8 hours of rounding a day, all that stress release. It was a complete and utter shock to the system.
It was, and I think not just isolated to the rounding, but I think meditation in general is different for everybody because everyone's at different lives, everyone's got different levels of stress, everyone's had different experiences.
Everyone's coming into the retreat in a different headspace as well.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
And I think some people were really enjoying it. Like, you know, they do check in to check, see if you're okay. Green is good. Let's just be simple about it. Green is good, blue is you're somewhere in the middle, and red is bad. And I felt like most of the people, more than half, were like green, green, green. Like, I'm feeling great. I'm really enjoying it. I'm really relaxed. And unfortunately for me, I was
code red.
Fucking red, man. Like I was, and I guess to come back to the point of it depends what you've got on your plate, right? Like how stressed out you are, what you're dealing with in your life, and yeah, I've got a bit going on. So, and there was nowhere to hide, right? As we discussed, no phones, no sugar, no coffee, no gyms, no nothing. So it was just me versus me, and I was really struggling, and but out of that came the funniest moment of the whole trip, right? Because we did the 4 in the morning, and then we went and got food, and it was kind of like, what the fuck are we doing here, man? Like, this is like, what is actually going on? And then we came back down, knocked out number 5, knocked out number 6. And for me, all of those 6 were when I meditated, I was just reliving like past trauma, past experiences that were particularly unpleasant. They're probably trapped in my system. I've never really processed, you know, loads of stuff to do with my upbringing and all the experiences I've had. Nothing positive, like all challenging stuff. And then I think we got to round 6, and I looked over at you to my right, probably just looking for some sort of comfort, like some sort of, like, don't worry, it'll be okay, or you don't have to do it, like, you know, you can take a break, like just something to like ease my troubles. And I got the opposite, and you just turned around and what did you tell me?
Are you a small business or solo entrepreneur who wishes you had more hours in the day? Have you ever thought about hiring a virtual assistant? Well, the Bondi podcast is sponsored by Remote. Remote specialize in connecting small businesses and entrepreneurs with the best virtual assistant talent in the Philippines to do all those jobs that you don't want to, so you can focus on growing and scaling your business. If this is something you're interested in, the Bondi podcast can get you 2 weeks absolutely free with Remote. Just go to the website remote.com.au/contact and enter the referral code Bondi for 2 weeks absolutely free. That's 2 weeks absolutely free. Cheers. I just looked at you. You looked at me and I could see there was a bit of despair in your eyes. And I just looked at you and just went, get on your fucking mat.
Get on your fucking mat. And I think
Let's go. Time for number 7.
Yeah, 100%. And I think from memory, like from that point on, I think it actually got a bit easier because I seem to recall round 7 and 8 on that day weren't as difficult as the previous 6 that day and the one the night before. And then actually the next morning, it actually completely changed. And I had a couple where I felt fucking amazing. Like felt so good. But yeah, that first day, that 6th round was very intense. And you were having a different experience, but even you were pretty spaced out, right?
I was completely spaced out. That by the end of like the 8 rounds, like I was just completely and utterly spaced out. Kind of like a really weird high where you just don't feel like attached to reality. And I remember sort of like after that round, sort of just like kind of drifting up to the dining hall to get dinner, but like just could not wait to go to bed.
Yeah, I think it was at that point where we were. What also made it difficult was you were doing this practice, which I was personally finding very difficult at the start. And then when you're looking for a break, you're looking for a reprieve, like you go upstairs to get something to eat, and you're not going upstairs for a Big Mac, right?
No.
You're not going upstairs for
steak,
like comfort food.
Yeah.
You're going upstairs for Ayurvedic, vegetarian, Indian curry. And it's quite, I think looking back on it, it's a bit derogatory to end up with the nickname we had with the food, right?
Yeah.
But I think it was the consistent colour of either yellow, brown or green. And I can't remember which one of it was that said it, but we ended up calling the food slime. Now that's unfair because some of the slime was actually pretty good. Yeah. It was. But yeah, that was like the sort of ongoing joke. Like we've just come out of this like 8 hours of meditation, absolutely fucking freaking out. And it's like, right, we need to go upstairs for a plate of slime. Like it was just, and I think at that point, was that not when we got the giggles? And we just kind of realised that like we've completely underestimated what we've got ourselves in for.
Yeah.
And it was actually funny.
Yeah. But it was funny because it was an element of how the fuck did we both end up here? We met each other in Bali 5.5 years ago. How the fuck are we here?
Yeah.
In the foothills of the Himalayas.
Yeah.
Freaking out.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. Like it was that, I think that was probably the moment, that couple of hours between the 6th round and realising what we'd dealt ourselves in for. And I think even at that point, there was still loads more to come that we didn't know. But yeah, first day was...
Yeah. And it was a bit of a repeat on day 2. It was another 8 hours. But day 2, as I said, like you mentioned there, was like a bit of a turning point.
For me, it was, yeah. The first round in the morning, as opposed to transcending down away from your senses, what you can see, what you can smell, what you can touch. Like you're not sleeping, but you're kind of away, right? As I said, the first day for me was very intense. Like it was lots of difficult experiences, reliving them. But then on the morning of the second day, the first round or the first 2 rounds was really the complete opposite. Like I was transcending and experiencing like a love and appreciation for all the things that I have, my friends, my family. In fact, I live in Bondi, all this stuff.
For me, the turning point was in the afternoon of that day. So for rounds 6, 7 and 8 that afternoon, I got up to the front of the room and like sort of led the rounding. And for me, like that was a bit of a game changer for me. I was really sort of flagging at that point, and then
Like
going up.
tired.
Yeah, like tired, like groggy, like massive resistance, like didn't want to do the next 3 rounds. And then I sort of forced, like Matt, the teacher, said, "Who wants to lead the next 3 rounds?" And I was like, right, to get myself out of this funk, I'm gonna go and lead the rounds.
Yeah.
And that gave me this like this energy or new lease of life. And those 3 rounds I had when I was sort of leading it at the front, and you came up to join me, were the best, the most blissful I had on the trip. And then from that point onwards, most of my experience was fairly blissful, which was great. So, end of day 3, we had a special guest join us for a few days of the retreat, a guy called Pandit G. Now, in Indian culture, a Pandit is someone who is very, very well respected because they have all this wisdom and knowledge, and they teach others this wisdom and knowledge, very much in a spiritual sense. But Pandit G, or as we call them, the wizard.
The wizard. Yeah.
How would you describe Pandit G to someone who has never came across him before?
I think the first thing that struck me was his height.
He's about 4 foot.
You'd be lucky if he was pushing 5 foot. And I'm 6'2", so like we've got photos of us standing next to him. He was very short. I think he looked beyond his years. I was very surprised to hear that he was in his 50s. And I said to Matt, I was like, what is he, like 80, 90? And he's like, no, he's like 53 or something. But yeah, like the happiest guy you've ever met.
Yeah.
Like the most relaxed, the most at peace, spoke broken English, but wasn't too bad. And I think he spent his entire life practicing Vedic meditation and teaching people to pass on the wisdom. But yeah, certainly appearance-wise, he was an unusual character. And just the way he cut about, and what's the exact definition of Jai Guru Dev? Is it praise to the master, I think it's praise, hail the guru, or it's something like praise the higher power, Jai Guru Dev, the 3 words. And you say that at the end of, like, when we get the emails from Matt each week about the meditation center giving advice and talking about different things, he always signs it off with Jai Guru Dev. And Pandit Ji, at the end, or not even at the end, most sentences would actually just be Jai Guru Dev, right? He'd say that as if it was like covered a multitude of stuff. And I thought him too, you were absolutely fascinated with him.
I loved him.
Because there was times in the rounds where he joined us to do the rounding, and I would be looking at you just out the corner of my eye, and you'd be pissing yourself laughing because G would be up at the front, kind of doing his own version of what we were doing, rolling about, fucking farting, doing all sorts of shit.
He was farting sometimes, wasn't he?
He was. But yeah, he came and sat, and he did give us quite a good speech when he arrived, and I think I took some of what his advice into one of the next days, and I think that's when things started to get a wee bit easier for me, and it was like, think positive things will happen. And I think that's one of the sort of ideologies I took into it. And when I meditated with that in the back of my mind, and I wasn't so tired from the travel, and I wasn't so shocked at what the fuck we were doing, that's when things kind of became a wee bit easier for me. So yeah, the wizard turned up, and we turned the corner.
Things still got a bit weird. When the wizard turned up. So the next day, that's when we started to taper off. So we started doing less rounding. But like, we did a couple of things that very next day. That cave that you mentioned when you're talking about Jay Shetty. So that's like, I think it's called like Vishnu or Vashnu's cave. And it was actually very close to our ashram. And people have been meditating there for 10,000 years.
Yeah, something crazy like
something mental, right? And we were told that, we were going. The plan was a bit of an excursion over the cave to meditate in it, just to experience it. And we were told that you don't go and meditate in the cave meditates you. And we were like, we're all a bit sus about
it was hyped up a lot, and I already had it in the back of my mind because Jay Shetty was like, it's the best place in the world to meditate. And
Yeah.
even Matt, who runs the centre and was running the retreat, he also said it's his favourite place
Yeah.
to meditate. But I think it used to be a lot bigger, so it's obviously inside a cliff or a mountain.
Yeah.
And I think it used to be it's gradually, as time has evolved over years, got smaller and smaller.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would have fitted more than 25, 30
No.
people. But I think once upon a time it was a lot bigger than when we went in. And yeah, it was certainly hyped up to be this, you're going to go in here and something mad's going to happen. And it was pretty intense because it's not like you book it out, right? It's not like a fucking private room that is yours. Like anyone's coming in and out.
Yeah.
And there was people there that live there going in there to meditate. So you're sharing the space with others. It was very
But when I went
bizarre.
in and sat down and closed my eyes, I could feel it right away.
Oh yeah.
And I went in with a healthy dose of skepticism. I wasn't like, this is going to, I would kind of went, there's no way that what they're saying about this cave is going to turn out this way. But as soon as I sat down and closed my eyes, just vroom,
Yeah.
just felt completely different. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, it definitely had like an energy about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if that's been built up from your expectations around from its reputation.
Mm.
But yeah, it definitely felt
Different.
And then G, the wizard, did a
Spell.
yeah, he cast a spell.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think he performed like a like a ritual.
Yeah.
And there was lots of like flowers and like pouring water and
yeah, it was like maybe a puja or something like that.
something like that. Yeah, and then he got each individual person to get up and participate. Like you had to pour the water on the flowers, and he did a fucking thing. And yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
But in turn with everything else being really fucking weird.
Yeah, I like sort of fell down a little well. So I
That's
didn't
right,
say
so
it
you
was
did.
so dark. It was so dark when it was my turn to go up and do the little ceremony thing.
Yeah.
Like you had to pour like a cup of water over this little statue, but I sort of leaned over and I didn't know there was a well in front of me, so I stepped up in the well and fucking fell down it.
Yeah.
It was just added to it all, right? Like it was.
Yeah, and I'm not sure if it was like when you're. Did he ask you? It wasn't like make a wish, right? It's not like throw a fucking coin in a well and make a wish. But there was something where it was like, did he prompt you to say something or do something?
Yeah. He prompted you to say, sort of repeat after him, like whatever the chant was.
I think I seem to recall I had an odd experience at that time because, and I'm not sure if it was like hyped up, and the reputation was when you're in this cave, something mental's going to happen. But yeah, when I got up to do my ceremony thing and I did my power to thing and whatever, I kind of experienced an odd thing that in the moment, I'd that voice in your head, that internal monologue had said to me something about when I poured the water and did the thing that I'd forgiven my dad for what he put my family through. And for context, my dad drank a lot, very bad alcoholic, my entire life. And in that moment, I was like, I think I actually pictured like me like shaking his hand and being like, it's all right. Now with hindsight looking back, I'm not sure I actually believe that, right? Like,
but you said to me
in the moment, it felt like it happened. Like that's what I was thinking, and I'm not sure if that's actually what happened. But maybe that's nature giving me a nudge as to maybe that's something that I need to do myself, which is something that I've harbored for a long time, right?
So our rooms were beside each other, and later on that day, just kind of before dinner, I remember coming out of my room, looking to the left over at your room, and you're just like sat on your porch, no phone, no nothing, just like staring out into the nature and like listening to all the sounds of the birds and the wildlife and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I was like, I've never seen you like this before. And then I remember when we were walking up to dinner, you said to me, like, I feel like today that I've been able to like forgive my father for all of his previous transgressions, which was beautiful.
Yeah, not something I thought I would have done. And I think sitting on that porch, just being in the moment, being mindful of what's going on around you, no distractions, no stimulants, no whatever. It couldn't be further from the day to day here, right?
Yeah.
So it was, yeah. I think that moment was very nice. The cave was mad.
But then things took another U-turn for you because we had the by the
Oh
fair
God,
ceremony
yeah,
with Pandit G that night.
yeah.
So
That was very difficult.
Pandit G, the wizard, like specializes in this particular fire
His
ceremony.
special spell.
Yeah, and we all had to go to this fire ceremony before dinner that night, and like it lasted fucking 2 hours, 2.5 hours. But
It was pushing 3.
you freaked out.
It was pushing 3. Yeah.
I enjoyed it to an extent. An hour and a half would have been nice. I was pretty hungry from a dinner, but you had a bit of a wobble.
Yeah, I found it difficult because it was it was the same it was the same thing over and over with a 1% change for 3 hours. But I think also coming back to what we discussed before is like the problems that I've had physically since I've had my hips reshaped. Like to sit on the ground with no furniture and like no support for that amount of time, you probably won't have noticed, but I probably changed position about 180 times. So I think in the back of my mind that I was struggling with that as well. But I think also at that point, I was like, what the fuck are we doing here? Like, I appreciate it's the culture and I'm a guest and I'm not saying it's wrong or whatever, but I did struggle to wrap my brain around how can we spend 3 hours watching this tiny Indian man pour essentially butter
It
into a
was ghee.
fire,
It was ghee. Yeah.
into a fire that he'd made with sticks from the ground that he just picked up 5 minutes ago. And the singing as well, like he was chanting like Hindi and he was trying to get you to,
Repeat after him.
aye, and it was
Yeah.
difficult, right? As you're singing a song in a different language you've never
And he points to
experienced.
you.
Aye, and he locks in on your fucking eyes and he's like, did it, and he's like making sure that you're, and I'm like, mate, I don't, yeah, it was intense. And I think the length of time, it was 3 hours. And then at the end, again, kind of with like the first day of rounding, it was like, all right, well, it feels like I've done a lot of hard work here and I'm not getting my phone. I'm not going to the gym. I'm not, the reward is a plate of slime. And it's just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, how are we here doing this and paying for like,
Yeah.
but it was good, right? It was a mixed bag. I don't want to say it was bad because it wasn't. But I think in the moment you were just like the realization hit,
Aye.
and you're like, this is very unusual.
You had to go and have a wee chat with Matt after that,
I
didn't
had to
you?
go and have a chat with Matt. Yeah,
What was your stuff about?
that was my second chat with Matt in a matter of days. I can't quite remember. I think it was just is this supposed to be this difficult? And at that moment, Matt kind of reassured me because he was like, it's different for everyone. It depends on how stressful your life has been. And I don't know the intricate details of what everyone else has been through in their life, but it was on the trip to compare to. But I know that I've had a few challenges. And Matt comforted me by saying that when he did teacher training, which is 3 months of rounding, not 9 days, that the majority of the time during his teacher training, he really struggled. And he was like, everyone else felt great. And I felt the words that he used were he felt like he was having a heroin withdrawal whilst being exercised. And I'm not saying that I felt like that, but the fact that he had been through something similar in terms of struggling and everyone else felt quite good, and I was struggling and everyone else felt good, that made me feel a bit better. I can't remember what the actual details of the conversation was, but I think that was the sound bite out of it. So off I went to bed to another day.
Did another day.
Survived another day.
Bondi podcast listeners, this episode is sponsored by Chief Nutrition. Chief Nutrition specialize in healthy, nutritious snacks that cut the crap. My personal favorite is the collagen protein bar, which I have every day. And good news, Bondi podcast listeners get 10% off all Chief Nutrition products when they order online. And we've got a discount code for you right there in the show notes. So go and use that, go and check out the website and let me know what you think. Cheers. And then the next day then was the big excursion, the big trip to Devprayag. So,
How have we've not even touched
yeah,
the sides yet.
yeah. So, as I mentioned, like we were staying in an ashram about 20 minutes north of Rishikesh. Devprayag is this little town, probably about an hour further north.
Yeah.
Um, but the reason we went to Devprayag is because it's famous for essentially it's like where the river Ganga starts. So there's
Hmm.
two separate rivers join at a particular point and form the mouth or like the start of the river Ganga.
Yeah.
And it's like meant to be like a very sort of spiritual place.
Mm.
Lots of people, Indian people and tourists, like go there to try and like dip or kind of yeah go for like a dunk basically where the two rivers meet. But it is hands down the most mental place I've ever been to in my entire life.
Yeah, it was very, very unique. And I think to go to a point anywhere where like a couple of rivers come together that were completely different colours, by the way.
Mm,
Remember, one was like aqua blue and one was like
a bit
sort of
browner.
dark. Yeah.
Yeah.
To go to that would have been unique in itself, but because I think that place is so held so highly in spiritual regard, for
Mm.
want of a better word, like it's very important to go there and then to experience everything that adds to what you're seeing and what you're hearing. Like, and it was just, yeah, it
So
was,
bearing in mind at this stage, we had just been like fairly secluded from society for like 4 days, and we'd
mm,
done all this like stress release and meditation. Then to get thrown in the mixer into Devprayag, like that's our introduction back into society. And how I would describe Devprayag is like it is a complete assault on every single one of your senses. The sights, the smells, the sounds, how things feel, like how things just feel when you're like you're walking on that bridge
yeah.
across like
There's definitely things that my eyes won't ever forget,
yeah,
and there was definitely smells. Well, they were burning. I think they were burning a lot of like this incense that
yeah, through the streets.
I could probably still smell it now.
Yeah.
It was very unique, and because of the importance of the location in terms of spirituality, a lot of people go there to do a variety of different things. So I think within a 50-meter radius of each other, all happening concurrently at the same time, which we had a view of,
Mm,
there was an arranged marriage, which our guide initially thought was
a
a
funeral.
funeral, a dead body. So that was passing by us. Then there was people being baptized, or essentially being baptized in the water.
Mm.
And what was the other one?
It was the cremation
The cremation. Yeah,
by the
fuck right.
riverbed.
Down 50 meters down the river, you could see dead bodies being burned and the ashes being put into the water. So a cremation, a baptism, and a wedding, all on,
Happening just at the same time.
yeah,
Just
just like, and it was completely normal
yeah.
for everyone there. I think that's a very regular occurrence, but for us, coming from where we've come from, Scotland, Northern Ireland, living in Sydney, to experience that, I mean,
I
you,
twigged on before you.
yeah, you caught on when we were on the bridge going from the main road over to the town, let's call it, where the temple is, and the shops, say the shops, not fucking shops, but where the action was, let's say. Yeah, I didn't really clock on to what was all happening at the same time, but you were freaking out a bit.
I got halfway over the bridge and started like first of all on this bridge, like you're crossing over like this massive river, like it was so wide, and you're on this little like rickety bridge, and there's lots of people on this bridge. It's a massive fall.
There wasn't just people on the bridge.
Oh no, I'll get to that. There's a massive fall down to like the river, like you're so high above the
Yeah.
river, and where you're walking over that part of the river, it's so powerful as well.
Mm.
And there's loads of
It's not a stream. Like
no,
there's
it's
a
not a
river
stream.
battering by you
Yeah,
underneath.
yeah,
Like if
yeah,
you
yeah.
fell into
You'd
you,
be
the
fucked.
game was a bogey.
Fucked. Then all of a sudden, there's all these cows on the bridge as well. There's a massive big
The
fucking
cows are
bull.
back.
Yeah, massive big bull just lying on it. I turned around to you and went, "This is one of the most surreal
Yeah.
moments of my entire life. And as I said that, that's when I clocked the arranged marriage coming down the
Yeah.
hill to cross the bridge into the town for the girl to get married.
Who was
16 at
and
best, miserable.
miserable, like looked very unhappy with what she was being forced to do.
Aye, because we got so close to her as she passed. So like for an arranged marriage, essentially it's like a bunch of men holding, like, what would you call that? Like a platform,
Yeah.
and then the
Carrying her, yeah.
carrying her and like hoisting her up in the air on this platform, and then she's sort of sitting on it, and she's all dolled up for her wedding day in traditional Indian attire.
Yeah.
But like getting that close to her and like looking into her eyes, like you could just see how fucking miserable she was.
Yeah.
Like, and that was very difficult
Yeah,
to
yeah.
see and
That made
experience.
that made an impact on you. But I mean, to be fair to her, she's not like getting fucking married at Turnberry, right? Like
Yeah.
she's getting married at Dev Prayag, which
Aye.
I think both of us would be far gone to experience anywhere mad like that in the rest of our lives. I think I'd said at the time that the only thing that could have made that place more difficult to comprehend would have been to incorporate violence. Like
Yeah.
to be in like a war zone, or to be like in the, like you could, I would imagine the favelas in Rio would be of a similar experience, but
Yeah.
it's dangerous, it's violent, right? Dev Prayag and Rishikesh didn't have any of that, but it was just beyond, the words I keep coming back to and trying to explain to people which don't do it any justice is just beyond belief.
Yeah.
Like, you have to see it to believe it. And
Yeah.
even when it's in front of your eyes, you'd still be like in just complete shock.
So we went into Dev Prayag, then went to the point that where like you did your dunk into the river,
Which we did.
which we did. But then, like as you say, as we did that, there's, as you say, there were people fucking getting baptized around us.
Yeah.
And then we came out, we're sort of drying ourselves off. You look about 50 yards down the river, and we were like, what's happening down there? And so some dead body just at the side of the river, just getting lit on fire, to be, so that it sort of burns to ashes, and then the ashes get scattered in the river.
Correct.
And that's when I was like, holy shit, like,
Yeah.
this is fucking
Yeah,
mental.
absolutely. Like, as I said, like a cremation, a baptism, and an arranged marriage, all in a village carved into the side of a mountain with one of the most holy rivers in the world flying by you at 1,000,000 miles an hour. But what's really unusual, and I worry about things at the best of time. I've always been a worrier. In that scenario, my nervous system's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, as you said, it's an assault on the senses. And once we dipped in the water, we went up the back and kind of went into like the temple, let's
Oh,
say.
we didn't just go up the back. We had to, it was about, it felt
Yeah,
like
you're right.
it felt like a
Actually,
100-meter
we
climb
we climbed up a lot of stairs.
to this temple at the very top of the hill.
You remember we went in, and there's no point in trying to describe it because it's actually very difficult. But I feel like we were in like a small room, and then in front of us there was a guy offering like, you know, a blessing, but behind him, in a very narrow opening, was like a statue, let's say, that you were praising. Let's just call it that. And it was very orange, like the clothes and like the way the color was very orange, and the face was like charcoal, like black with like big eyes. It was quite intimidating. When I first looked at it, I like caught an eye of it through the thing, and I was like, nope, I can't look at that. This is too much. This is too mental. And then I kind of like 30 seconds later, I kind of came around and I said to myself, I was like, nah, like I'm not fucking scared of this guy. And I looked through and I looked him right in the eye and I was like, I'm not scared of you. They were the conversations I was having myself.
Yeah.
And then we came out and went around, and people kind of scattered and went different places because there was slightly different things to do. But I ended up going around, I think, with Charlotte and somebody else. And there was a guy just like handing out blessings. He stood above you.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted some money, and I didn't actually have any cash on me, but he gave me a blessing. So he put his hand on the back of my head and he repeated a few words, and it was so, one of the most, and I actually forgot about this, that happened in that moment. As he was blessing me, he like tapped me on the back of the shoulder a few times, like it's up here, like, and I remember as he was like hitting me, it felt, not hitting me, as he was like blessing me, it felt like it was somebody that I'd known my entire life, that I was extremely comfortable with. that was like, don't worry, everything's going to be okay. And it sounds like woo-woo and weird, but in that moment, that's exactly the emotion and the feeling that I got, that it was like, don't worry, you're all right, which again is absolutely fucking mental. Like, what? How's that a thing? But it was,
Oh, fuck me.
it was nuts.
Yeah,
Like,
it was nuts.
so I don't think you got a blessing from that guy.
No,
I've got pictures of it. At that moment, that moment I experienced when he was doing that was the same I had with the first couple of rounds that went really well. It was like, just like, as you said, like bliss, like feel so happy, so safe, so secure. And for somebody that spends a fair amount of my time feeling the other way, it was very welcomed, shall we say.
in the most random of places as well.
Couldn't be any more random.
Do you remember who was sitting? So as I said, like we had to go up felt like about 200 steps to get up to this
Big
temple.
steps.
Do you remember who was sitting at the bottom of the
Yeah,
steps?
I do remember who was sitting at the bottom of the steps. The guy,
The evil wizard,
the evil wizard, yeah.
the dark wizard.
Quite the opposite of our own wizard G.
Yeah.
A guy that was, I guess, just sitting cross-legged, very like bright orange, like clothes on.
He dressed like
turban, right?
He dressed like a pandit as well, didn't
Yeah,
he?
he
Like,
did. Yeah, he did. But he wasn't.
had a very different energy.
He wasn't spreading joy.
No.
He was giving out vibes that, things aren't good.
Yeah.
He was quite scary, right? He was quite intimidating.
Yeah.
He was very dark-skinned. He had like incense like burning around him, and I think you'd said when you looked at him, what was it you said? You thought
He looked right into my
looked
soul.
right into your soul.
Yeah, yeah. As we were walking past him, I looked at him and he looked at me straight in the eyes, and it felt like he was looking into my soul.
I don't think I spent much time looking in his eyes. I think he was a
No.
bit too scary
He had
for
the
me.
darkest eyes
Yeah,
as well.
he really did, man. Like, and I think we spoke about it afterwards. Like, what does he do? Does he just sit there all day? Like,
Yeah.
is that just his gig?
Yeah.
I don't even think he was asking for money.
Nah.
I think that was just maybe what I'm not sure. But he was very intimidating. Like, and which is really weird because most of the people that we encountered were actually
Nice.
very nice, and they didn't like bother you or try to sell you stuff or get money off you, whatever. This guy was a different beast. He was like,
Yeah. I don't know what his vibe was.
yeah, it was dark,
Yeah.
very dark.
Yeah.
The Dark Wizard.
Anyway. Right. So that was Dev Prayag, which was fucking mental. But then that was kind of like the end of our time at the ashram. The next day, we left the ashram and went down into Rishikesh. We actually stayed in like quite a nice hotel for the last few days of the trip.
It's certainly the nicest hotel Rishikesh has got to offer.
Yeah, it was nice. But how did you sort of feel leaving the ashram and sort of going back into the mixer of Rishikesh? Because Rishikesh is quite fucking intense as well.
I feel like I think I think we got a couple of photos on the bridge, and I felt like we'd accomplished something. Like we'd done good work, and it was hard and it was rewarding, and it was kind of like, but that's done now, and we can now leave and go to a slightly more comfortable setting, which is a hotel where they've got air conditioning, for example.
Coffee, nice food.
Sure.
Yeah. Massages.
But yeah, I remember leaving the ashram, and I think the overriding emotion was like we've done that. It was a bit of relief, I think, that we were moving on to a 6-star hotel. Certainly not a 6-star hotel you would see in Dubai, but in the grand scheme of things where we were, it was definitely 6 stars. So I think when we got there, it was like, things were a bit more relaxed, right?
Yeah.
In terms of the rules that we talked about at the beginning, like no sugar, no coffee, no this, no that. Most of the hard work in terms of the rounding had been done, and the need for your nervous system to be not stimulated was kind of over. So you could start to integrate back into normality.
Yeah. I was quite sad to leave the ashram. Because that was like the really like spiritual and authentic like part of the trip. That's sort of what I had in mind. But it was fucking after 5 days of everything that we went through. It was nice to get into that. It was nice to open the door in my hotel room, see some aircon, see a shower that actually fucking worked properly rather than just a drip. Like a nice, like I think the beds were fucking huge as well.
Yeah, and I made a drastic error of the minute I got in, I eat a lot. I not eat a lot of chocolate, right? Like,
Actually, I'm gonna tell this story, right?
okay.
I'm gonna tell this story I'll tell you it from my perspective, right? And you can tell me if I've got it wrong.
Right.
But as soon as we checked into the hotel, we all agreed to go for like lunch. So we'd been in the hotel probably about half an hour. I got down to lunch a little bit later than Danny. Danny had already been down there. But I just remember we all sort of sitting around this dining table. And at one point, I looked at you, who'd been in the hotel for half an hour. In front of you, you had a green curry, a Thai green curry, a plate
Pizza.
of rice that was for two people,
Yeah.
a cheese pizza,
Yeah.
a chocolate brownie,
Yeah.
and you were just going flat out on your phone,
Yeah.
like scrolling away on your phone like you hadn't seen it for like 5 days. And I was like, I just remember I didn't say anything at the time, but
Yeah.
I was like, he's gonna regret all of this later.
Yeah, and that doesn't include the chocolate cookies in the minibar in the room when I got into the room. But I think, in fairness to me, like in terms of the phone, you were going to Bali after India. I was going home to Sydney, and I needed to make a decision around what I was doing. And I was on my phone at that time. I wasn't like scrolling Instagram. I was trying to make arrangements to sort flights and stuff. But yes, you're right. I completely indulged in everything that was happening, all the menu, all the chocolate, the phone, everything. And you're right, I did absolutely regret it because after 5 or 6 days of eating very clean food,
Yeah.
my uh, my body let me know that it wasn't happy the fact that I'd eaten a Thai green curry and half a pizza and all this food. They got a bit excited, I think.
Yeah, you got a bit carried away, mate. Well, we live and learn.
Correct. I mean, I think the notion of that we weren't eating slime for 5 minutes
Yeah.
after 5 or 6 days was like, fuck, I've actually got a choice of something that I actually know what it is.
Yeah.
Like I can read the menu and I'm like, right,
Curry, pizza, brownie,
yeah,
chips,
it was a lot.
hot chips.
I did a lot.
Unbelievable. And then my sort of favorite. So we were in Rishikesh then for like 3 days, like the final 3 days of the retreat. My favorite part of our time in Rishikesh was when we went to Maharishi's ashram.
Yeah.
So Maharishi, very much seen as like the person who brought Vedic meditation in its current form to the Western world.
The Godfather.
The Godfather, essentially. And what Maharishi's famous for is in 1968, the Beatles spent some time in Maharishi's ashram in Rishikesh learning how to meditate. So I think it was Paul and George stayed there for 10 weeks. John stayed there for 4 weeks, maybe, and then Ringo only lasted 5 days because he didn't like the food in India. But we got to go and sort of check it out. Now it's all like derelict.
Yeah.
Now it's not functioning, but that in itself was just such an amazing experience for me. I absolutely fucking loved it. I love just walking about, even though it's all run down. You can sort of like, I was sort of walking around picturing what it would have been like when it was at its most vibrant in the 60s and 70s and 80s when Maharishi was like still teaching there and the Beatles were there and
Yeah, and you were
fucking incredible.
in the end you were gutted that, well, maybe you can.
That I had to leave.
No, I remember afterwards you were like upset that it was not in use anymore and it needed to be restored to its former glory.
Yeah, that's exactly like I was like, as we were leaving the ashram, I remember getting like really, really sad. And I was like, because I just kept picturing what it would have been like in its full glory. And then like how many people that ashram will have indirectly helped. Because that's where teachers,
well, that's what G learned, right?
well, that's where Pandit G.
That's where the wizard.
Yeah, that's where Pandit G learned. So Pandit G.
He was on the tools.
Yeah, Pandit G like lived at Maharishi's ashram for many, many years, was taught how to meditate by Maharishi. But like, yeah, I just remember for the rest of that day, I was like, if I was like a billionaire and money was no object, I would restore this ashram to its former glory and like have it as a space to teach meditation and yoga and breath work.
It's not too late.
And that's not too late.
I enjoyed it. I mean, I want to say graffiti in and
Yeah.
around the
The art.
buildings. Yeah,
Yeah.
all the art that was not graffiti. That's unfair because I think some graffiti to me sounds like, you know, tags, right? It's not. There was actually lots of like artwork there that had been painted onto the different buildings and the different walls, and I enjoyed a lot of that. I got a lot of cool photos. But then also when you went into the room and they had the original photos of when the Beatles were there back in the 60s and like framed still up on the wall and actually written, inscribed on it was like 1960, whatever, like the original photos. And obviously the Beatles are like the most famous band ever, most successful band ever. Quite unique to see that kind of stuff. Like you're never going to see that. It kind of felt like you had a real appreciation of what it was like for them when they were there.
Yeah. You got a real sense of it, didn't you?
Mm,
Despite it being like fucking 40 years, 40, 50 years ago.
yeah, I think restoring it to its former glory might be part of your dharma.
Yeah. Never say never, mate. Um, and then just the final thing I wanted to sort of just touch on our time in Rishikesh, because the days in the hotel kind of all sort of
I spend most of my time trying to figure out how to fucking navigate the place, right? Like, I mean, I'm 15 years in engineering and construction, been in endless hospitals, airports, you know, stadiums, whatever, and I've never been in a building that started on, what was it? Started on level 7
yeah.
and dropped down to -2, but the lift didn't stop at floor 3, and then there was another lift that took you down more floors,
It was
and
the Crystal Maze.
it was the Crystal
Because
Maze.
it was built into like the side of a
Aye,
cliff, wasn't it?
it was
So it
very,
was kind of like the Crystal Maze.
it was very unusual.
Yeah. But then, like, I'll skip ahead to the final day. So, final day, we sort of did our last round as like a big group. We all sort of did that thing where you go around in a circle and everyone says, you know, what stood out for you, what was your favorite moments. But that was like quite emotional, right? You started greeting,
It
you started
was,
crying.
it was. I wasn't. It wasn't full waterworks, but yeah, I think when I was asked to talk about, you know, I think the question was, what are you going to take away?
Mm,
What's your takeaway? What's your learning or whatever? And yeah, and I think when I got around to explaining what I had taken away, I did get a bit upset in a nice way because, you know, I felt that the people that we'd met, who we'd never met before, right? There was like 13 of us or whatever. I felt like the people that were there were some of the nicest, most compassionate people I've ever met. And because of the nature of what we were doing in terms of the meditation and stress release, and because of how often everyone was talking about checking in on each other, how are you feeling? And I'd been feeling, you know, I'd struggled. I felt like and I felt like I needed to explain to people why I was struggling so much. So I think felt like I told my life story like 12 or 13 times. And I just felt a lot of compassion from everyone in the group. And when my turn came to say what my learning was, I think that got me a bit
mm,
emotional because, yeah, the people around in the circle had helped me a lot through that time period, and they were complete strangers, right? So I welled up a bit because, yeah, it was pretty emotional because that time for me it was in the most part pretty difficult. Um, so yeah, I think my learning was to, you know, be a bit more compassionate for myself.
mm.
Like, don't give myself such a hard time. Don't blame myself or whatever. And that was nice. How have I kept up that theory since I got back? I'm not too sure putting it into practice, but at that moment it was definitely emotional for me. But I'm notoriously emotional, so
Mm.
that's nothing new.
And your key takeaway.
My key
Yeah,
takeaway,
what was your little you know your little phrase that was like your important phrase of the trip?
my important phrase of the
You
trip.
got a fucking tattooed
Oh
on your
Jesus
arm.
Christ!
You got a tattooed on your arm when you
Yeah.
came back.
Mother's taking care.
What does that mean?
Mother's taking care is a reference to Mother Nature. So part of the spirituality and part of the practice is praising the river, praising the sun, praising the nature. And I think if you have faith in whatever is happening, it might be difficult in the moment. If you can embrace it and accept it, then it makes you have a more positive outlook. And that is that Mother's taking care. So I think the example that Matt gave around if you're a child and you want to stay up late and you want to eat more cookies and you don't want to go to bed, but your mum knows you need to go to bed, and let's be honest, that's what you need to do. She knows best, right? So mother's taking care. So for somebody that worries so much as I do, to try and have a more positive outlook is definitely healthy. And yeah, you're right, mother's taking care. And then I've been looking for inspiration around to finish this wrist elbow number that I've got, and it resonated with me so much that I decided to
Let's see, get it on the camera, mate.
stick it on my arm.
There we go.
So yeah, mother's taking care.
Duty, mate.
And since then, maybe not so much the last week or so, because as I said at the top, like work's been very intense since I got back. Certainly for the first couple of weeks, anytime I was worrying about something, or my brain was automatically saying, mother's taking care, mother's taking care. And Matt's right, like thinking about it like that does make the moment a bit easier. And then the group chat that we've got with everyone from the retreat, I think I'd probably said mother's taking care in there quite a few times.
Nice.
And mother is taking care.
Mm.
Maybe it doesn't come to the forefront of my thoughts all the time, but it's definitely a good way of thinking. So yes.
Yeah, I'd agree, mate. For me, my key takeaway was something Pandit G said, which was do less, achieve more.
Mm.
And the way I sort of have interpreted that and sort of taken back is, I think prior to the trip, I was like trying to spread myself too thin across lots and lots of different things, trying to do well at work, trying to do the podcast, trying to post more on social media, trying to train the house down for High Rocks, trying to, spend time with my partner, Abby, trying to be a really good boyfriend, trying to speak to my mum and dad more. And it's difficult to try and do all of those things well. And so what it's sort of given me is like a renewed focus on doing less, focusing on what's important, and kind of like doing it well.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what I sort of took
And
away
I think
from the
I've
trip.
seen that put into practice, because I think there's some things that you're not doing as much of. So yeah, you need to practice what you preach, right?
Exactly, mate. No, cannot get you on the podcast without talking about some of the shit you did in that final day. When you knocked on my door to tell me you couldn't find your fucking passport.
Yeah, that was pretty bad.
So we were checking out of the hotel on the final day, about to go and get some flights to Bali, and you knock on my door and you're like, I can't find my passport.
Panicking. Yeah. And at that point I'd been looking for it for about 45 minutes. So I think when I unpacked my suitcase, I took my passport, and for some reason in the moment I decided to shove it into one of like my trainers, and it's the same color as the Converse. So when I was looking for the passport, I couldn't see it. It was like sort of disguised. And we eventually found it, but I looked for about half an hour myself, started to panic, phoned Danny, who was helping Matt organise the trip, went up to the reception, asked for if anyone had handed it in. And I was worrying, because when I was much younger, like 20, I went to Mexico, lost my passport, and it was an unbelievable hassle to get that, to then get back into the States, to then go back home. And I was starting to worry that I was going to have to, everyone else was going to leave and go home, and I was going to have to make my own way to the closest embassy to get a passport. And it was a similar situation to when I was younger, which was quite unpleasant. So yeah, almost lost the passport, but found it.
It was in your shoe.
It was in my shoe. But to be fair, it was hard to see, especially when you're freaking out.
Oh, mate. So what did you think? You were going to have to go to the embassy in Delhi, try and get an emergency passport?
It was more,
I'd be in Bali.
Yeah, it was more the fact that when something similar happened to me when I was younger, I was with half a dozen people. And my mate's extremely wealthy dad
bailed us out,
sorted us out. And this time it was like, everyone's going to leave. I'm a fully grown adult. I need to sort it out myself. I can't rely on my family or my mate's rich dad. And it was like, right, I need to get to the embassy and get a new passport. That's going to take ages. And I just started catastrophizing in my brain. But once we turned everything upside down, we eventually found it, which was a huge relief.
Happy days, mate.
Yeah.
And then You want to talk to me about what happened at the airport at Delhi before we boarded the plane?
Yeah, I think I almost shit myself. Which, having spent 9 days in India, to get to that point and not had any problems of that nature,
Yeah,
I think I'd done pretty well.
yeah.
But yeah, going from down through the gate to get onto the bus to go on the plane when we were going down that final set of stairs, you know what it's like. My stomach just went, "Eh," and I was like, right. Really, luckily, within 10 feet there was a bathroom.
Yeah.
So went, used the toilet, came out and was like, thank fuck, like, that's a relief. Did the ticket, went on the bus, and then about 5 minutes later,
And
like
we're
round two.
we're still sat on the bus. The bus is like
Yeah.
taking on lots more passengers to drive to the plane.
Yeah. And I was like, I need to go to the toilet again. So I was like, dropped off the bus, went to go back in the building, and the guy that was the guy that would have let you back in was like, no, you can't, you've already checked your ticket. And I was like, no, you don't
I need to go
understand
back
it.
in.
Like I'm going to fucking shit on this floor. Like you need to let me into the toilet. He wasn't having it. Came back onto the bus. Was like kind of like pacing about, like, what do I do? What do I do? Went up to the bus driver and was like, here, Hector, you need to get a fucking move on. Like, can you just drive to the plane?
And the Indian guy just looked at
And
you
he
and
was
was
just
like,
looking at me like, wait, well, I didn't speak any English either. So then eventually I was like, made a big deal about it. And the driver got out the bus, went back into the airport, spoke to the guy that had said no. He still said no. I got out and there was like an Indian, like,
army guy
he was a soldier with like a
with a
big
big
machine
fucking
gun. But he was quite
AK.
old. He was like in his like 60s.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you need to let me back in here. So let me back in, went to the toilet, round two, horrendous. Came back, felt a bit better, but then got on the plane and it still was lingering. And then on the plane, it was like so busy. And as with that part of the world and that culture, there's no real organization. Everyone's changing seats and no one's really doing what they're supposed to do. Trying to get to the very back of the plane to use the toilet again wasn't particularly easy either. So yeah, I definitely had a toilet challenge right at the back end.
Mate,
But you took a video of me. You got a
aye,
video on your phone, and I'm like
aye.
trying to figure out what to do, like trying to come up with solutions, and it was fucking brutal.
But the best part for me was when we're on the bus and the bus is like half full with more and more passengers gradually getting on, and you going up to the bus driver being like, "We've got, we've got to go to the plane now." In the
We
bus
need to go.
drivers,
Like we need to get the foot on the gas, mate. Like I need.
you're like, "Come on, we're going."
Yeah, as in like fuck off everyone else. Who gives a monkeys about them?
Time to go.
Exactly, dude. Like we need to get a move on here. And he wasn't having. He wasn't really up for it.
Oh, it was incredible. And then we were on the plane, like as soon as the seatbelt sign was switched off, I remember just seeing you sprinting past me to the back of the plane.
Yeah, which is mad because in the airport there was options for food, like there was a KFC.
Yeah.
And we were like, nah, that looks a bit dodgy.
Yeah.
And we ended up eating pasta from this. I want to say a pub. It was called a whiskey bar, right?
Yeah.
It was actually really. It was your favorite meal of the whole trip, right? It was actually tasted really good. But yeah, didn't agree with me
Brilliant.
when I paid the price for it.
Unbelievable.
Unfortunately.
Unbelievable. Right, mate, let's wrap this up. Best moment of the trip. Looking back on the whole thing, best moment of the trip.
Get on your fucking mat.
Aye.
The worst and the best moment at the same time. Like the hardest moment, but also the funniest. Yeah, that and probably the opportunity I got to thank everyone at the end for being so kind and caring and whatnot. I think between those two, but it's hard to pick, man. Like
Yeah.
it was mental. So much stuff was happening. Good, bad, difficult, stressful, hilarious. But probably those two. What about you?
Yeah. For me, I loved going to visit Maharishi's ashram. Like I absolutely just loved that. And then probably just like the amount of times we got the giggles. Like after like a long day of rounding, just some of the nonsense we were chatting and the giggles and just talking about the wizard and the slime and
Yeah, just the patter, right? Like the absolute nonsense we were talking, and just laughing about that was it was good.
but then we were like we would start giggling and then it would just set fucking everyone else off.
Yeah,
Well,
everyone
the other people,
else.
yeah.
Everyone else seemed to enjoy how childish we were being at points, which was nice.
I enjoyed my pep talk that I gave to everyone.
Oh yeah, when you were trying to arrange people when you were leading the rounding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Trying to get
yeah,
psyched up.
that was quite good as well. What a trip, man! Like, what the fuck?
Class.
honestly.
So if you've not been, go and fucking check it out. It's a fucking hell of an experience.
Strap yourself in.
Daniel, thank you for coming on for a chat, mate. Enjoyed it, brother.
You're welcome.
Cheers, mate. Thank you.